Hey everyone, welcome back to BrowncoatNerd. Today we're going to look at the Casio F105W, which first off, I'm really happy Casio doesn't have a ridiculously long name, and it's kind of cool. Sounds like a fighter jet or something. Also, disclaimer, I'm kind of new to watch wearing and Casio collecting, so if I appear that I don't know what I'm talking about, it's because I don't. This is all very new to me. I've kind of jumped into this head first. But I'm really enjoying it so far. Started out with an F91W, realized I like Casio watches, and I've been kind of buying them left and right ever since. Now, the second Casio watch that I had purchased was the A168, which is essentially this watch, but just with a metal band and a chrome colored plastic case. And then, of course, we got the different bezel there. But the module itself is the same, and that module number is 3298. This is a fairly cheap watch. I think you can pick it up anywhere from like 15 to 20 bucks. I did get this one off of Amazon. Some of the basics about it, like I said, it's just a cheap watch. It's just got the acrylic face, nothing fancy there. So, if you're beating it up a bunch, that crystal is going to get scratched up. It's got 30 meters of water resist, so kind of the basic Casio water resistance on it. It's got a 7-year battery life, which is awesome. Really like the long life that these Casios have. And as you can see, we have 3 pushers around it. Some of the features this watch has, or rather, all of the features this watch has, it does have a stopwatch. It does have a single alarm. It has an hourly chime you can turn on and off. And then also you can switch between 12 and 24 hour. Now as you can see here, or maybe not with the glare, over here we have a PM mark. So we do know when it is PM, there's not an AM mark. And then obviously if you're in 24 hour mode, you won't have those. We have the day of the week up there, and then the day of the month. While it doesn't display what month it is, you do input that in. So it knows how many months to display, or how many days to display for that month. You will have to adjust it every so often for leap year. But other than that, it's a nice little feature, especially for a little cheap watch like this. I do wish it had an alarm. I've discovered I don't really, or excuse me, not an alarm, a countdown timer. I've discovered I don't really ever use the alarm. Very rarely I'll use the stopwatch, but I do use the countdown timers quite often. But these cheaper, kind of basic Casios tend to not have the countdown timers, so it is what it is. The viewing angle on this watch, of course, this glare is absolutely horrible. It's pretty good. It's very clear. That's one of the things I'm really surprised about is a lot of these really cheap entry-level Casios have very sharp displays on them, which, I appreciate. It does also have lume. This is the electroluminescence that Casio is kind of phasing out. And that's the reason I bought this specific model. Like I said, I have the A168, which I absolutely love this watch. It was my favorite for a while, but as I said, I've been buying a lot of Casios lately. It is no longer in first place. But I wanted to get the basic one with the idea of doing a mod or upgrading the body. A really popular thing to do with these, especially this model, is you can get an actual metal frame for the watch and metal straps that are actually pretty decent quality. And I was kind of thinking about doing that maybe in gold, kind of have like a retro, semi-classy or semi-dressy watch to wear. So that's why I got this model. And to show off that electroluminescence, I am pushing the wrong button. There we go. Switched it between, there we go, 12 and 24 hour time. As you can see, it's very clear to read. The light stays on as long as you're pushing the button. However, one thing I was disappointed with, if you look at the very top of this, you can see it's a little bit darker. And I can't find my 168 now. There we go. That is just on that specific example. My 168 does not have that. It's a solid blue throughout. You can see it's just a little bit darker on the top, which is kind of a bummer. Not super excited about that. This is actually my second F105W. The first one I purchased did not have this issue. So, little bummed out at that. Don't really want to waste the money of doing a mod if the module is not perfect. Also, once again, as I've been collecting these Casios, I have kind of discovered, like I said, this is no longer my favorite watch or module. It's still up there. I still occasionally wear my 168, but probably not going to throw the money at this one to do that upgrade. The first one I had, everything was fine with it. I actually just gave it off to a family member when we kind of did a big family vacation down to Mexico. Wanted her to be able to see what time it was, because a lot of us weren't bringing our phones with us. We're around the pool constantly, which is one of the reasons that these little cheap watches are great. Compared to the F91W, it's pretty close in size. It is just a little, I think it's just got a little bit bigger of a footprint, and then just ever so slightly thicker. But the F91W is a pretty darn small watch to begin with. So adding just a little bit of girth isn't too bad to that. Great option if you do like these super small cheap watches, and the F91 is just too small. A small step up, it's not a big step up, in size would be this F105. Now, once again, going back to how this used to be my favorite watch, I would have said in this review, if I hadn't already bought a bunch of other Casios, that this is the perfect kind of cheap throw in your range bag. If you're the kind of person that has a bug out bag, throw one of those in there. The battery lasts 7 years, so every couple of years, just rotate it out. And they're super cheap, so it's not a very expensive thing to do. However, for about the same price, a little bit cheaper, I have found some other watches that I do think beat this out, or you might want to be aware of. One of them I've already done a review on, and that is the W217H. This is the watch that I wore to Mexico, just as a cheap beat-up watch. You can see it's a fair amount bigger, so if the size is a concern for you, keep that in mind. But this was actually, I think, I got this one for like $12. I think typically they're like 15 or something. I think the water resist on this is a little bit higher. Yeah, it's 100 meters, so quite a bit more water resistance on this. And then we got this guy here too, which I actually absolutely love. Have not done a review on this yet, so you're going to have to stay tuned for that. Once again, a little bit bigger, but maybe not as big of a size difference. So, I would have said in my review for this watch that this is the perfect cheap watch, kind of have an extra in your car or whatever. Like I said, there are other contenders now. Now, the other watches do not have the electroluminescence to them, and some Casio collectors go absolutely nuts over that nice blue backlight. Now, I will say it is a absolutely beautiful backlight. My understanding, the reason Casio is phasing that out is it's cheaper to go with an LED light, and the LED light uses a lot less of the battery life when you're using that. And apparently I've seen this come up. I've never seen anyone ever complain about the electroluminescent like burning out or anything. But Casio says the LEDs just last significantly longer. They have a longer shelf life, I guess you could say, if you want to call it that, than the electroluminescence. But once again, like I said, I have not come across anyone complaining about the electroluminescence failing them. And now, once again, I am new to this, so maybe there are some stories out there I just haven't come across myself. Also, on a side note, I get a lot of comments on social media when I'm sharing this watch collection or on some of these videos. People are seeing I'm getting into watches, and they're like, "Oh, BrowncoatNerd, you need to get the classic G-Shock." Just so everyone knows, I've got it. Yes, I absolutely love it. So we will also have a review on that coming up. So, who is this watch for? If you want a cheap watch that's going to last a couple of years to throw in a bug-out bag, This is an option. I personally think there are some better options out there. However, if you want to go as small as size as possible, this is smaller than the other watches would consider for doing that. If you like the retro styling and you would like to do kind of an upgraded mod to it, but just kind of keep the basic, cool 80s, 90s retro look to it, I do think this is a good module. Fortunately, apparently some of them, the electroluminescence isn't perfect on it. I've heard Casio has great customer service, and I'm sure if I wanted to, there's some way I could send this in and get a replacement. But the watch is like dirt cheap, so I'm not going to bother with that. Also, like I said, I'm not really planning on doing that mod upgrade to this anymore. So at this point, if like one of my friends ever mentions they need a cheap watch, I'm just going to be like, here you go, enjoy. So that is the fate of this watch. I'm keeping my 168. That 168 isn't going anywhere. It's not leaving my collection. But this is a nice watch. However, I've just got some other ones that I prefer wearing over this one. Not that it's a bad watch. It's a great watch. Watch, it's not you. It's me. But once again, like I said, even the ones that I go for, when I'm in the mood for wearing something like this, they're a little bit bigger. So if you do have smaller wrist, this would be a better option. And once again, that backlight, if some people are just dead set on having that, you do have that option. The other ones just have standard LED backlights. So that is it. That's all I've got for the F105. Oh, before I forget, my apologies. I should throw it on. I do have a 7¼ inch wrist. The band on this is like the F91. It's pretty small. Almost too small for my wrist. I also like to wear my watches kind of loose. But you can see there we got, 2 additional holes. Most people with my size wrist would probably wear it 1 hole tighter. Like I said, I just kind of like to wear them a little bit loose. It is small, but I don't think it looks too terribly small on my wrist. Looking at the screen on the camera here, it does look kind of small, but in person I think maybe not so much. But there's the idea for you on that. Now, of course, like I said, I don't really do watch reviews. I tend to do reviews on other things. And instead of doing a wrist check at the end of my video to expose maybe some watch collectors out there to gun collecting, I like to do a lacking check on the end of my watch review videos. So what we have here is an Israeli-made IWI Jericho 941F. It is chambered in 9mm or 9 Luger or 9 Parabellum. It's all the same caliber. The magazine holds 15 rounds, so you could have a total capacity of 15 rounds in the magazine, plus 1 in the chamber, for a total of 16, if you're keeping up with the math at home. Most of these guns have a double action, single action trigger. What that means is if your hammer's down, first time you fire the gun, the trigger pull is going to be long and pull the hammer back, and then once you get all the way back, the hammer will drop. After that, the slide will rack back, cocking the hammer, and then you'll have a very short trigger pull and a lighter weight to actually activate the trigger. This particular one is single action only. So you can see when the hammer's down, or when I pull the trigger, nothing's going to happen, even though the safety's off. I've got to actually pull that hammer back to activate the firearm. And we do have a safety. It can only be activated when the hammer is back. This is a copy. Not really a copy. They took the Czechoslovakian CZ75 and they made a lot of changes to it. I know Tankfolio in Italy did a bunch of upgrades to the CZ75. And so I think what IWI in Israel did, they actually took the already upgraded Tankfolio Italian version and took that a little bit further. My understanding is that actually the first productions of these Jerichos, they were using the Tankfolio parts and assembling them in Israel. This is also a very iconic gun if you're like me and a little bit of a nerd, especially a sci-fi nerd. I'm not even big into anime, but I know the connection between this gun and the anime series Cowboy Bebop. Now, Netflix did do a live action series, and the gun is still Spike Spiegel's firearm in the live action version as well. A lot of the fans hated the live action one. I hated like the first 15 minutes. I was like, oh, this is going to suck, but I kept watching. And every episode, guys, I just enjoyed it better and better. And then, of course, Netflix canceled it. So it only had one season for the live action, which is unfortunate. But it's a very fun futuristic space show about bounty hunters, essentially. And this is the main character's gun. Interestingly enough, in that anime, they paid a lot of attention to the design and even like the roll marks of real guns that they were drawing in that show. And they're extremely accurate, which is really interesting because, you know, they're Japanese. They don't have the easiest access to firearms. But they really paid attention to whatever, pictures or access to firearms they did have and made very accurate representations. Now, the one that Spike uses in Cowboy Bebop, the safety lever, is on the slide rather than the frame. However, this is a very narrow, short slide, so I do not mind not having that safety on the slide there. Also, that drops the price down quite a bit, because if you were to get the exact one that Spike uses with the proper sights, the exact same roll marks, the safety up on the slide, those puppies go for quite a bit, because there's a lot of anime nerds out there that are willing to pay a high dollar. This one was fairly cheap, or at least in 2019 it was. I picked this up, I believe, from Classic Firearms in December of 2019 for $345. These are still coming in the country a lot as surplus. This is a used Israeli police or military firearm. We're still getting tons in. I think they're going for about $100 more they are than when I got it. You can get them in different finishes. They have different barrel lengths, different grip lengths. You can also buy them new if you want to go that route. Their modern versions have polymer bodies. You can get them with rails underneath so you can attach a flashlight and stuff like that. They're very nice guns. They're very ergonomic. I got it because I really like Cowboy Bebop, and it is an iconic gun because of that. Also, I do love the CZ75. It is a very accurate gun to shoot. It's very comfortable to shoot. However, this is like the one surplus firearm I've bought. Well, one of the very few that's given me some issues. And it's been a while since I've taken this out, but I don't think I quite steamed out all of my problems. I was getting a couple of jams and some stovepipes. I changed out the extractor and the extractor spring, put in a high power magazine spring. The recoil spring is captive, so I can't just slide it off. And for the life of me, I cannot get the roll pin that holds it in out. And I've looked for complete assemblies. All the ones I found, they're going to stick out a little bit. So I've just been hesitant on that. I need to dig back into this gun because I absolutely love it. It's got like just the right amount of wear on it. I don't like guns that look brand new. I want them to look used. Also, there's nothing worse than having a beautiful, shiny, brand new gun and then you put a big old scratch in it and just knowing, yep, I did that. Every time you pull it out, that's a reminder. Something like this, you could put a scratch in it, you'll never even know. So I think it's great to collect surplus. They have a very cool history. A lot of times, I don't know that history. Sometimes it's kind of a jaded history, but it's more history than just going and buying something brand new, which to me is kind of boring. However, sometimes they don't always function perfectly, and you gotta change a couple of springs out and play around with them to get them running right. But that is it. That is my review on the Jericho F91W slash, or the what? The Jericho 941F and the Casio F105. Tongue twister. So that is it. That's all I've got for you guys. If you did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Don't forget to go check me out on Rumble as well as Instagram. And of course, as always, stay safe and stay shiny.